What's going on, guys? It's Rogan here, and welcome back to week 2 of our summer showdown predictions. Last week was a complete shock. Pun may be intended, but I got
Maybe.
I did manage to get 22 points somehow. There were a lot of strange results from last week, and that kind of reflects in the table. I mean, obviously you've got teams like Houston, Washington, Atlanta, and Dallas who haven't played yet, which will obviously completely change this probably, knowing some of those teams. But seeing teams like Boston, Toronto, and Paris on the top is just insane. I mean, Boston, they went for, I think they went 2-2. They're in the top six last cycle, but it's really nice to see some of these teams like Toronto and Paris find their stride and actually get wins more often. I think Paris have actually gone, yeah, Paris have gone positive now, which is great for them. They're slowly creeping their way up into the top six for actual playoffs itself, which is great. Um, yeah, we're not seeing a one-sided show anymore. It seems.
I mean, yeah, I think we're getting towards that point where it's less of these are the clear-cut teams that are gonna make it, and these are the clear-cut teams that are good, and we're starting to see, like you said, these sort of lower echelon teams, even in APAC with the Charge now 1-1, New York is 1-1, uh, and the Spark are 1-1. These teams that we thought weren't gonna be good are now suddenly doing a lot better than expected and kind of hitting that correct point where, and maybe it's because there's no hero bans for summer, but just everything seems to be clicking for a lot of these bottom tier teams, and a lot of these top tier teams seem to be flipping the table and sort of losing whatever made them really good in those first two tournaments.
I think another thing that is huge from that past weekend as well. A lot of these lower teams are finally realizing what they need to do to counterpick these higher tier teams, and the higher tier teams just don't seem to have it to counterpick back. So you look in the Paris Vlads game. Paris straight up counterpicked them. They changed their roster on the fly. Sorry, they changed their hero picks on the fly. It worked for them, and they won the game. They completed the reverse sweep. It's taken 2 months or so, but these teams are finally realizing, okay, we need to be able to be adaptable and able to beat these top tier teams, and it's finally working out for them. And I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. This upcoming week, we have a lot of interesting games. Some games that could definitely go either way. I mean, we don't know how Houston are going to come out. We don't know how Atlanta or Dallas are going to come out. Equally, we don't know teams like Shanghai or I think, yeah, Shanghai or Philly.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, we don't know how they're going to come out with some of their new additions. So both of those APAC teams have either gotten their roster back because of visas, or they've gotten whole new players which they can build in these qualifiers and get them some game time. I think Shanghai, I believe it was in the last cycle, they signed Who Are You from Contenders for that DPS player. So
Hmm.
we could see him come in every so often, and make it into more changeable, but it's going to be interesting. So we're going to get right into these predictions. We're not going to waste your time for too much time today. Just sit back and maybe just listen to us if you're doing something else, because this might be long, this might not. We don't know how long
Who
we're going to
knows?
be going for. So, opening game. Paris Eternal versus the San Francisco Shock. Now, you look at this Melee, possibly June Joust. Shock wins this. You look at this now, it doesn't seem so certain anymore, does it?
Not particularly. I don't want to say we're giving Paris too much attention because obviously, Paris played really well against Glads, completed that reverse sweep, like you said. We're able to kind of on the fly grab new players and pick new heroes. But also they played London, and we both know, and I'm sure everybody else knows very well, London isn't the strongest. Yes, they gave Shock a run for their money, and I'll give them a ton of credit for giving San Francisco one hell of a run, getting them to last map, basically last point. But they're still not that upper echelon team where I think that Glads is a defining win for Paris. I think that London win, especially dropping a map to London in a game where you should have dominated, where it didn't even look close otherwise. I I still think that Paris can give Shock a run for their money, but I think Shock kind of has the advantage of history and also that kind of strong team bond, even though you lose. Obviously, you lost striker recently.
I think for Shock to win this, they need to arrow out all of these mistakes they've been making within that first week, and somebody needs to step up and be a leader and make these decisions, because in both of the games they played, even in London game they won, their decision making was about half a mile behind what both opponents were doing, and it was costing them a lot of games that they should have been winning, a lot of maps that they should have been winning. So I think if they can get a clear-cut leader, they can definitely beat Paris. But I think if Paris show the wherewithal that they showed against the Glads, I think that they could potentially win. I don't think it's going to be a very convincing win. I think they're going to come out and survive like the Shock did against
Right,
London, or is Shock
right.
going to come out and survive against Paris? I don't think either team quite clearly wins this game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a very close map regardless. Ugh, it's tough. I think I think I have to give it to Shock just because I mean, eventually, especially after a week of going 1-1 and getting that close with London, I don't see them making the same mistakes. I see them ironing it out in practice and in film and stuff. I don't see Krusty, their coach, giving them any sort of leeway as to, yeah, we lost, but at least like they were both close and we won, but you know, it was close, but at least we won and at least our loss was close. I think he's gonna sort of get on them and be like, "All right, where did we go wrong? What happened? How can we improve? What decisions did we make that ended up costing us certain maps or certain points?"
Yeah, Krusty's getting out the whip this weekend, but resource limited.
We can hope, but I do think it'll be close. So I think I'm gonna go 3-2 Shock here because I think Paris can make runs like that, especially proving it against Glads. But I still don't think they have what it takes to beat the full upper echelon of NA, or I guess West.
I think the thing you gotta remember with the Gladiators as well is they're a team on paper that should be dominating, and yes, they went 4-0 in the qualifiers, but they don't seem to get it together when it matters, the Gladiators, and they end up falling to teams that they shouldn't be, which was a case with the Paris game. Um,
Exactly.
but I definitely think that there is a storyline here with Paris wanting to get back their summer showdown crown, which they won from the Fusion last year. I don't think. Yeah, I think I'm gonna mirror you here. I'm gonna go 3-2.
Yeah. I just don't see it being Shock, but they do have one of the easiest roads to getting into knockouts
Yeah,
of any team this tournament.
I think they're gonna self-confidently split into that fourth or fifth. Maybe they'll stick down to sixth, but every single cycle this season, sixth place has been 2-2 teams, and I think they're gonna be at least 3-1 this series.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they're gonna be between fifth and third, I believe, depending on how many maps they take from Shaw.
exactly.
But 3-2. That's the first game. Now moving into the second game, we have a team who didn't play the first week. Well, two teams actually who didn't play the first week. One team making it and getting third place in the June Joust, which was very impressive for them, and another team who seemed to fall off the pace compared to the May Melee. We have the Washington Justice, of course, against the Atlanta Reign. So Washington, it's the case every single time you play the K and you win the game. It's just that simple. But um, I think Atlanta are finally proving themselves, and it's something that we've been saying since we started doing this series. That when Atlanta come out and they really put their foot pedal to the metal, they put their foot, they come out and they come out strong. You know what I was trying to go for, but
Yes.
uh, they come out and they dominate. we saw it in the knockouts in the actual playoffs themselves. They dominated the Excelsior. Sure, they fell to the Shanghai Dragons, but that's nothing to be ashamed of. The Shanghai Dragons are probably the best team in the league, I believe, at the moment. So getting third place in a tournament is not bad. They got that extra point on the board, so that's what's going to help them making it into the playoffs at the end of the season. So this will could be a close one if Washington get their roster right, but if they don't, I think Atlanta take this.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Washington comes out the same way they did in May, where they basically ran the table in May, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
or even in June, where they went 4-0 and it didn't look like anybody was a contest until the knockouts. This could be a phenomenal game because I think Atlanta has found their stride again. They come, what was it, second in May and third in June? Or no, third in both June and May, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Hitting third on teams like Dallas and Shanghai is phenomenal for a team like this, especially a team that looked sluggish coming out of the gate, sort of didn't really know what was going on. Their everything looked a little bit off, but now they look like they're finally that strong Atlanta team that people thought they were gonna be, and they could be deadly for the rest of the season. So I think it's really gonna come down to, does Washington play decay, which I think is a no-brainer, but apparently Washington's coaching staff seems to think otherwise. Um, but yeah, I think I give it to Atlanta. I think,
my
and maybe Washington takes one. It just depends on who they play on DPS.
my heart is saying that it's going to be a 3-1 either way. It just depends. Like, it just depends on Washington's roster. But I think Atlanta are going to be riding the high. They're the sort of team I think that's like, okay, we got third place. We're going to build on that now, and we're going to come out even stronger in the next cycle. I think this is going to be one of those wins for them. I think they're going to win this one. I'm going 3-1 to Atlanta. So we're going to move over to the East region now. I'd say this used to be a game where we'd say, yeah, Fusion wins this, but I don't think so anymore. Obviously, Fusion most likely will win this, especially with the recent roster changes. But
Hmm.
the Charge have looked good. They looked really good against Excelsior, but then again, Excelsior have been up and down. They did pull 3-0 to the who did they lose to?
Hunters.
The Hunters, who have also been a team that have been up and down this season. Um, so I think Fusion do win this. But it's just a matter of the differential.
Right. It it could go either way. Obviously, now you have Funny Astro, you have Shockwave, and you have Poco all on two-way deals, so they can kind of be moved up and down at free will. And you're adding that into a very dominant, what should be a very dominant Philly Fusion lineup with Carpe, Astro, Carpe, EQO, Alarm, Toby, Hotba, Rascal.
No.
So it's it's up in the air, and I think both of these teams are the definition of a hot and cold streak team, where if Spark play, or I'm not sorry, not Spark. If Charge play well, they play well, and if they don't come out swinging, they sort of take the back seat to even a team who I think we kind of gave too much credit to the past few weeks, or every week we do this, Chengdu,
Yeah.
who have looked pretty bad, except against those sort of bottom tier APAC teams. But my brain is telling me Philly win this just because they have more better additions to their roster now, where they can sort of, if Rascal's not working, they can put Astro in. If Hotba or Mono is not working, they can put Poco in. I think it's much more liberating now that all of these players got their visas and kind of have the ability to play with their team.
Yeah. And I think if the Fusion can cotton onto the fact that the way the Charge plays very much, let's get Agnes set up for this Nano Blade. and we're gonna go in and we're gonna basically team wipe them. If they can shut down Eileen, I think that the Fusion can definitely take this game. It's just a matter if they can come out and get that game plan going and shut down the Chargers DPS. Because I think that is the strongest part of that team. Obviously you got players like Karev who have come from the Gladiators and have looked good, but that was last week was not a good showing for him in the slightest. He was finding his own team, he was getting killed by the other team. So I think overall I think that the Philadelphia Fusion win this 3-1. They haven't looked good enough for me at the moment to give them the 3-0, but I think they win this
Yeah,
3-1.
that's exactly what I said. I think this is a 3-1 because I think Charge will have at least one good map.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the second East game, we have a clash of the Titans, I think. We have the Seoul Dynasty, who have looked very good so far against the Shanghai Dragons. And now, I think every time this matchup has happened this season, the Shanghai have dominated Seoul. But I think that something you have to take into account with this game was the fact that Seoul have finally got their tank problem sorted, in the fact that they're now playing Tuyu and Marvel instead of Gesture, who has looked hot and cold all season, has been making these bizarre Roadhog picks and just not worked out for them. So I think this Seoul team, who have looked very strong so far, especially this last week, have more than what it takes to take it to a Shanghai Dragons team. But again, the Shanghai Dragons have doubled the Seoul Dynasty's points total at this point because of how
Yeah,
good they've been.
this Shanghai team I think just looks too good, especially coming out of a really good June, winning June Joust. Obviously, I think it's going to be hard at least to stop this Shanghai team from continually rolling.
Yeah. But I think any team in the league, have the capabilities to do it if they show up. I think if Seoul Dynasty show up, I think they can win, if not make this a very close game.
Absolutely.
Who do you want to give it to?
I think I want to give it to Shanghai, but I think I want to give it to Shanghai 3-2. I think Seoul will keep it close all game, and I don't think there's going to be a clear cut winner until that fifth map.
Yeah.
And I think it could go either way after that.
Yeah. That it's hard to predict against Shanghai after how dominant they've been this entire season.
The Shanghai team is just too good. It's too good because they are the I've said it before, especially with teams like Shock and with Glads, and even with Seoul or Philly, they are forcing people to play their meta. Like even West teams, they are forcing West teams into their meta to counter them and to make sure that they don't lose to that Shanghai team when it comes time for tournament. And I think that's a mark of a team that could win another tournament and possibly win the whole thing.
Yeah. I think another thing you have to take into account, like you were saying, making these West teams play the way they made the Dallas Fuel of all teams played their way to win the June Joust. They had they forced Dallas Fuel's main tank off of playing the Winston, which was the comp that Dallas had made everybody else play and that they dominated on, and they forced them into playing Wrecking Ball, which Fate just dominated on. So it's yeah, they're just too good.
Yeah, the Shanghai team is scary right now.
Alright, we don't. I don't think we need to talk about this next West game. I think.
Yes.
I
Is it what
think.
I think it is? Yep, it sure is.
I think maybe I think before we move off this, I think Vancouver do have what it takes to take a map. They took a map off of Boston, um, who then went on to the Florida Mayhem. So I think this could be a
I don't.
3-1, but
I think this could be a 3-1, but I'm more inclined anytime I see Vancouver to say 3-0.
that's completely fair. Yeah, I don't know if I'm not bold enough to do that.
I
But
don't think I've seen a single time where Vancouver's actually put up a fight, especially if Paris looks as good as they have,
yeah.
and give Shock a run for their money the day before.
So moving into this next West game, I believe this was one of the matchups in the Melee.
Yep.
Dallas Fuel against Florida Mayhem, where the Dallas Fuel steamrolled them, I believe. And
Let me check. I can tell you right now.
even if the Mayhem have on a really cold streak at the moment, they're on a five loss streak since the Melee. They've won, I believe they've won one game in the June Joust. They went 1-3. So
It may have been a June Joust matchup, but yeah.
Something's gone wrong with this Florida team. Something's not clicking. Obviously Yaki's still Yaki. He's doing Yaki things, but
He's doing his own thing.
OG just doesn't look as good. He's getting dominated on every single main tank matchup that he goes up against. He was getting dominated by Stand One, which
Yeah.
like and their supports. I mean, their supports. Have they had supports these last two games? It doesn't feel like it. They just lose the team every single team fight. They go in 5v6 because they're not getting the heals. They're just getting mounted. Supports don't know to back up tanks, and
Mhm.
it's literally just Yaki trying to backpack this team to a win. It's not working. I think Dallas, if they come out, we all know they want to go back to Hawaii again. Dallas lives in Hawaii at this point. Like same with the Shanghai Dragons. I think this is gonna be a 3-0. Unless the Florida Mayhem get it together, I think maybe they can take a map. But I think Dallas will dominate this.
I think so too. I don't think there's really any question, especially if Dallas keeps playing like Dallas has been playing basically every single um tournament so far this year. I don't think there's any question that Dallas can just kind of come out and take over a 0-2 Florida Mayhem team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0 here.
I think I am too. I thought about 3-1, but I think I'm gonna go 3-2 or a 3-0.
All right, now week one rematch time, huh? We have the
Oh
Houston
boy.
Outlaws against the San Francisco Shock. Now this was the one game we all know it. We've all seen the clips of the Shock saying, "Oh, we want to play the Outlaws," and then they come out against the team they're playing, and it's not the Outlaws, and they don't do as well
Yeah,
most of
they
the
get
time.
boomed by Dallas.
So it was very close the last time. We're not gonna sugarcoat that. It was very close the first time we played. Houston have looked very good, and Shock have looked very shaky. And especially coming off of the 3-2, possibly just scraping a win against Paris. Honestly, do you think they can win?
Uh, if we go back, because you said Shock looked shaky, but Shock were still number 2 for June Joust. Yes, they can't. I'll admit it. They can't win knockouts, but they went 4-0 in June Joust. They looked pretty dominant after that Houston loss in May Melee at 3-1. They look shaky right now, but Houston looked pretty shaky near the end of June Joust at 3-1. Yes, they went 4-0 in May Melee, and then got boomed by Dallas, just like Shock. Surprise, surprise. But I think this is very much up in the air, and it's going to come down to what does Shock come out running, and what does Houston come out running? Because I think we know what Houston's going to come out running. I think they're gonna put Dante on the Tracer again, finally. So they could come out running May Rush with Tracer, and I think Shock could do the same thing, run May Rush with Nero and Glister, and then hopefully FD God does better on Lucio finally, and maybe put Smurf on Reinhardt or Super on Ryan. I could see them winning this. I think last time, I think it was too close for comfort for either team, and I think this time it's going to be just as close, but I think the Shock have a little bit of a fire under them because, like you said, they've said they want to play Houston. That's all they've wanted to do is play Houston again and prove that they can beat Houston. And I think this is where they prove that they can beat Houston.
Also, another thing you have to realize going into this is the Sharks' last qualifier. This is all they got. They get Paris and they
Yeah,
get Houston. If they don't beat Houston, they will be 2-2 for this, and that will mean that they will have to leave it to other teams performing worse around them to make it into those knockouts. And we all know how much they want to go to Hawaii,
Hawaii.
because we all heard Hawaii sucked anyway. But
Yeah,
I think uh I could also see both teams coming out on this Tracer Ball thing we've been seeing this last week. But it seems to be
I
popular at the moment.
I don't think the Shock have the confidence to run Tracer Ball. Yes, Super is a very good wrecking ball. Don't get me wrong. I've seen him play ball both in league and out of league on ladder. He's very good at ball. I think they're gonna stick to that Rhine pick or Winston, depending on if Smurf or Super are in.
So then the question is, do you think that they've got what it takes to counter that strategy if the Houston Outlaws run it? Because Wrecking Ball
I
has that.
think so.
I think if they're running the Rhine comp, it's less likely they come out because Wrecking Ball has that mobility to go in and get behind Ryan Shields, distract him, and then the rest of the team just pick him off easily. And we saw that in the
Yeah,
London game with Super getting picked so easily with the rest of that London team just battering him down, essentially. Um,
right.
so I
But I
think,
also don't think that. I mean, I guess Django plays ball, but we haven't seen Django play ball at all this season. Like, at least we've seen Super come out and play ball at times, mostly when they need to touch point.
yeah,
But still, you see him playing ball. We haven't seen Django play ball at all, and then Piggy is just kind of fully only off tank.
I mean, the thing at the moment has been the off-tank players playing the ball. You had players like Morphic playing the ball for London, and I think there's a few other examples from this past week. They might not do it, but it is an option out there that they could come out and do and try and shock either one of the teams. Um,
Yeah,
I think
I think. mm,
uh, I don't think Shock want to miss Hawaii for a third time in a row. I think they win this 3-2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, the other thing I'm also thinking, because we were just talking about that ball comp, is we could see Super Smurf just straight up not see Choi. If they want to run that ball comp, run Super on ball, have Smurf playing Monkey or even Reinhardt and try to do that.
That could
Or
work.
you could see, I guess, Choi playing ball, but I don't think Choi has ever played ball.
I don't think so. Yeah. Definitely going to be an interesting game, and definitely going to be the game. It is the primetime game for Saturday, so you're not gonna want to miss this one, for sure. So, moving in to the last games of East, we have the Seoul Dynasty going up against the Guangzhou Charge. I think Seoul are gonna want to prove a point coming into this game after making it so close with the Shanghai Dragons. They looked so dominant week one and falling to Shanghai after being so close. I think that they're going to win this. I think this is gonna be another 3-1 for the Charge.
You think so?
Yeah.
I was thinking 3-0 because I also think that Seoul wants to make a statement, but
It's good back. They dropped a map against. They dropped a map and got full held by the Chengdu Hunters, who haven't looked that good last week.
mhm,
And they 3-0'd the Spark, which is impressive in itself. Um, so they've shown that they have the mm, I don't know. They've shown that they can be full held and they can drop a map against these mid-tier APAC teams. But they've also shown that they can dominate against these mid-tier APAC, mid to lower tier APAC teams.
I think it goes either way. I think I am gonna take you. on that 3-1 though. I think
Yeah.
Seoul takes it 3-1 and gets full held somewhere.
If Charge can get it going with Eileen and get a nano blade going, and they can and build it up enough, they can hold them for at least one map.
Yeah.
So, last game of APAC, and oh boy, the Fusion really into the fire.
Yeah. Really throwing them into the fire here, huh?
This is also the double points game, so anybody who's doing predictions, you're gonna want to get this one right if you want to stay in contention for that Lucio statue and the 500
Exactly.
XP. So, Shanghai,
Uh,
Shanghai have shown that they can't. They have the ability to be 3-0'd by some of these top teams. If the other team comes up playing their hearts out, they've shown that they can be 3-0'd. The Spark did it last cycle, and I
yeah.
think if the Fusion are on this hot streak, like we're gonna say there, because we're predicting they're actually gonna win, and we don't know when they go on these noise streaks. They do drop maps and lose sometimes. If they're on this hot streak and they have this ability to interchange, there is a chance that they can win this and make a statement and show we are going to make a tournament for once this time.
Mhm.
You have to remember the last time these two teams played, it was in the knockouts for the main melee, and it was one of the best games you could probably watch all season. It was a 3-2 to the Shanghai Dragons, and it was only just they only just beat them. So this is going to be a very close one. It's just going to be who you think is going to get that edge. I think in that map 5.
Yeah. I I think I'm gonna still give it to Shanghai. I think it's been too much domination across the board by that Shanghai team for it to go any other way.
That's fair. I think they equally Fusion have the potential to pop off. You can never underestimate players like Carpe or EQO if he's going out there to win. Um, Alarm has been one of the best honors in the league this season. I mean, he's got one of the lowest death rates in the league, and he's got some of the fastest nano charges. It's like some of these honor players, it feels like they have that nano boost on cooldown. It's not something you build. It's just something that you're guaranteed every single fight. It feels like, and Alarm is one of those players.
Mhm.
I think it comes down to how strong the Shanghai Dragons support line is. So I think they have an equal match for the rest of it. I think Izayaki is probably stronger than the Fusions off support, but
Mhm.
I think it's pretty much matched everywhere else. Um, I don't know. I don't. I want to go to the Fusion. I'm gonna be different, you know. I'm gonna
You're
give
gonna
it.
be different.
I'm gonna
We're
give
gonna
it.
be quirky today,
I'm going to be
apparently.
quirky. I'm giving it to the Fusion 3-2.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you're gonna watch this, and we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna look like a big brain next week.
Absolutely.
You're gonna see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm totally not getting any points for this, but it's okay.
No, not at all. It's
Okay.
okay though. You gave it a good shot.
Last three games we have the Atlanta Rain. This is a rematch from the June Joust as well. We have the Atlanta Rain going up against the Dallas Fuel, and the last time these two played in the winners finals for the June Joust, it was a 3-1, but it was a very close 3-1, and Atlanta Rain were figuring out this Dallas Fuel team right up at the end of the game. I think if
Mhm.
Dallas come out with the same look again this next cycle, I think that this is gonna be another close matchup between these two. Um, Obviously, we had Dallas experimenting in the Shanghai game with the ball comp, so that maybe they've been practicing that since their loss. But
I
I
mm,
don't think so. I think they're very set in their way of playing this probably Sombra Reaper at this point because Sombra's come back or Sombra Tracer because that was what they dominated with in the main melee. And
right.
they'll play that the Winston Rush comp. I think Winston Diva, Sombra Tracer. That's what they've been known for. Maybe they'll play the Zen now. I think they're more likely to play Ana and
I
Ana
think
Bap.
they're also more likely to play Ana Bap or Ana Lucio.
Yeah. So it's just if Atlanta can get that read on that comp, I think they can win this. I don't think they will,
Right.
but it's just do you bet? We bet against the Dallas show a bunch of times and betting yes, and do you still want to do you want to be brave or do you just want to go to Dallas
I don't
again?
know. I don't know. Because also you have to think, even though we're not really talking about it, Dallas was one map away from winning another tournament.
Yeah,
Like, they were up 3-0, or 3-1, I'm sorry, not 3-0, but 3-1. And then Shanghai just happened to come back, force them into that ball comp, and dominate the last 3 maps. Like, they were 1 map away from 2 straight tournament wins. And I think that has to have some effect on how we should start viewing Dallas as a front runner in the West, where even though we keep betting on against them, I think at some point we just have to accept Dallas is the front runner in the West and is gonna stay there maybe for the rest of the season.
yeah. I think my head is saying it's gonna be another close 3-1 like in the knockouts. Maybe 3-2.
I could see that.
I think 3-1 is the more likely thing here. I think Atlanta could have what it takes to take control, but we've seen some of these teams they take the first control map. Control is definitely is a game where if you take that first capture, you're then more than likely going to win because you can rotate, especially in the Overwatch League. Maybe not in the game that everybody else plays, but in the Overwatch League, you get that first point, you rotate your ults, and you just dominate the point and keep control of it. If you play it right, that's basically how control is played in this league. So I think if Atlanta can do that, I think they can get that first map. Um, if not, it's either gonna be a 3-0 or a 3-1. But I'm gonna go 3-1 to Dallas here.
Yeah, I I agree with that, I think.
Yeah, 3-0.
Yep.
Last game.
This game is difficult. I'll take over here for a second. Um, with Florida looking the way Florida has the past 2 tournaments, I think this could go Washington's way just because the supports in the past for Washington have looked far better than Florida's supports, and especially now down 0-2 in summer. You know, it hasn't looked like Florida's supports have been there at all. Gangnam Jim and I assume even Slime have just fallen off a cliff all of a sudden, and not having more supports in the back is hurting them immensely because they don't have anybody to sub in. So if they keep hitting this cold streak with their 2 supports, where do they go from here? And even then, BQB didn't look too great. I assume last week, I didn't get to check much of the game last week, but I heard that Checkmate got put in at some point, and I think that's a very big eye opener to just how well BQB has been doing. I mean, you almost hear nothing of OG or Gargoyle anymore. I know OG's still somewhere in the top for power rankings for tank, especially his main, but you almost never hear about Gargoyle anymore after May. And I just think that Washington has a better compositional team all around. I think having Decay and playing Decay and even playing Jerry can work out really well. Having your backups, having extra not even having extra support, just having good support. Bebe and Closer are very good at their job, and you're hearing a lot more of both of them recently than you have of any other supports in the past few weeks, and you know, kind of in the past couple of tournaments. So if Washington comes out and plays the way we think Washington will play this sort of tournament and the rest of these qualifiers, they could easily roll over Florida with no problem because Florida doesn't look like the same Florida we saw in May. And I don't know what happened to them, but something happened.
Yeah, and I mean, as you look at this Washington team, and we've all been waiting for them. Obviously, they showed it in the main event, but this team on paper is one of the best in the league, and you got rookies in it who have proven their worth. Mag is probably, I think he's the front runner for rookie of the year at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the front runners for just MVP. It's just this team is insane, and yeah, sure, June was a down spot for them, but I think out of any roster in the West, for having going hot and cold and getting going back on track, I think Washington is that team that can do it, and I think that this tournament is where they're going to do it, and I think this tournament they could actually make it to Hawaii. But they just have to prove that they can do better in the knockouts. But obviously they're going to come out this weekend 1-1 as we're predicting. But still, very good team. Florida on the decline. Washington have been on the raise on the up recently. Um, so I think this is going to be. I don't think Washington are quite on the level of Dallas in the fact that they can 3-0 them because
I think it'll be a
Florida's
3-1.
yeah, Florida still have the potential to take maps. They're not the worst team in the league by a long way. They are still decent. So they will make it competitive for sure. So yeah, I think 3-1 is the way to go here.
Yeah, I think Florida really is one of the worst teams this cycle.
Yeah.
For no other reason than just they don't look like the Florida that they should be.
So we're gonna wrap the video up there. That is all of our predictions for week 2. Make sure you remember to do your pick'ems for this week because a lot of people seem to forget, and then you won't get in the chance to get that statue of $500 or just be ahead in the table of voting with your friends like I am at the moment. I probably gonna
Mhm.
come behind after this week with that prediction. But anyway, we're gonna end the video here. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll both see you guys in the next video. Bye.
See it.